Welcome to the Mobile Games Playbook in association with Liftoff. Join us as we uncover the latest trends in user acquisition, monetization, and mobile game design.
Hello and welcome to the Mobile Games Playbook. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. This is a podcast all about what makes a great mobile game, what is and isn't working for mobile game designers, and all of the latest trends. I'm your host, John Jordan, although in this special episode, my host duties are being somewhat truncated because in the host seat, asking the hard questions, we have General Manager at Liftoff Intelligence, Brendan Fraher, and he will be talking to former Rovio Insights lead, Carlos Salvado, and they will be talking about the indispensable role of player motivation and market intelligence in making a successful mobile game. So, okay, Brendan, take it over. Off you go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the podcast. I'm Brendan, General Manager here at GameRefinery, and today we're diving into some of the biggest topics shaping the mobile gaming world in 2025 and beyond. And I have a very special guest with me today. Carlos, we've known each other many years. I know you have many unique skills and experience from many different areas and teams, but can you first give an introduction about yourself for the audience so they can understand, let's say, a little bit more about yourself? And then
Absolutely. My name is Carlos Salvado. I've been a professional the last 15 years in gaming, both mobile and PC and console. I'm currently senior market analyst for Rovio. I've worked in several other crafts such as advertising, product management, game design, economy design. So I know my way around games in and out. And basically, I'm here to tell you that, well, with all of the experience that I've accumulated, unfortunately, mobile game ecosystem is evolving constantly. So you need to always relearn everything that you knew in the past, new business models, new tech, new AI integrations, new opportunities that can actually drive the revenue for most companies are actually not only focused on the products themselves, but in the whole ecosystem that the games provide, IP, licensing, etc. So hopefully I can share a little bit of that information with you guys today, and let's see how it goes.
No, wonderful. As always, every time it's a great conversation with you, Carlos. And I know we've got a great agenda today, touching on many of the main challenges top of mind for developers. Of course, web stores, live events, let's say, and so on. But one thing as we were speaking, let's say off camera, was game hybridization. You had a very interesting phrase, which is many, let's say, audiences say, why do all games look the same?
I think that the mobile games industry recently is a little bit of going through a creative, let's say, bankruptcy to some extent. We've forgone to be unique into trying to make things work dynamically similar across several different games and even genres sometimes. This is not just on mobile. You can see this across the board. There's a lot of topics of company X copied from company Y, etc. But we need to be upfront and understand that hybridization is a way forward and a way for developers to learn how to create better products for their own audiences. What keeps them around? What keeps them engaged? How can you make the known and unknown audiences actually opt in to those products and continue to play across the board? This doesn't mean that you will be fixated only on one particular game. It can be your portfolio that you have available. It can be cross-platform. It can be digital content. It has a lot of shapes and forms. But at the end of the day is we're doing products for clients, new and old alike. Fans, people that don't know of the brand, people that want to tap into the brand, people that just want a different experience. And that's where the topic comes in hand. So I like to give an example of hybridization just to clarify to people exactly what I mean. I like to use the match 3 Souls-like type of game. That's 2 genres that do not mix usually.
Not the first thing usually that people would come to mind, right?
But it raises the question of the casual audiences versus the core gamers. Would it be possible to create that game? If you design the game consciously, for example, you can find that sweet spot where 2 worlds meet, and you have an awesome product that you can provide, with a lot of creative space for people to tap in and experience something new. That's what I defend, at least. That is the creative process around the hybridization itself.
I agree. You know what? I would even go as far as to say, and I know you said it, let's say, very diplomatically, right? But I would say a lot of developers are very much into safe bets.
Yeah, indeed.
And then it's not to say, let's say, that there can't be, that there's no space for innovation and stuff like that. We've seen enormous, breakthrough hits. And just as you were talking there about, again, Match 3, let's say, Souls-like, right? Which I think, let's say, it's so great because, again, it's something so new that even if you think of it, let's say something like the Survivors type games that, let's say, that came over the last year or two, like Vampire Survivors, very much roguelike, very much kind of like, simple, casual, let's say, gameplay and stuff like that. But became, let's say, huge breakout hits. And it was like, oh, where did it come from? Well, it's, understanding like there was a niche in the market for an experience. And, now, of course, luck always has, let's say, it plays a lot of, let's say, of a role, let's say, of the timing, having the right product at the right, at the right time. But of course, like a lot of work, let's say, was done at even, let's say, Arch role, let's say, beforehand.
I can even add onto what you're saying, Brandon, in one single idea that let's think broadly across mobile and PC and console for just to give this example. So we know that younger generations most of the times do not know specific titles. So recently there's been a big boom with the remaster for Oblivion, for instance, from Bethesda Softworks. A lot of the younger generation saw the game for the first time through Oblivion Remaster. And those were the ones that are on board in the new experience. So once you have a concept or an IP, you just need to cater that same product or IP towards the audiences that you want to reach. Oblivion is an excellent example because it's for old folks, such as myself, play the original, have been fan of the original, and now the new generations are coming in and enjoying the same things that we enjoyed years ago. So you can actually be creative even with an old product. You just need to add the features that those audiences are looking for in that experience. So basically context matters. Adapt to it and you will see a big impact in whatever IP you have. I'm eager to see what comes next.
I agree, but I will say that's one of those magic wand phrases, isn't it? Just understand, let's say, your audience, right? But then trying to understand the audience, and then that's, let's say, where again, let's talk, let's say, a little bit about your experience, because as we know, it's not so simple, right?
Let's use this as a segue to give a little bit of example, and we can continue on. So, for example, nowadays on mobile, there's a big topic of direct to consumer. The discussion of the margins, how the platforms that distribute the games take advantage of that title and the success of that particular game in order to increase their margins. Studios are now looking for solutions to make sure that they can provide cheaper experience to players in providing them platforms in which they can buy in at a large discount. But this can be a very good thing and a very bad thing, and this needs to be considered as well. On the right side, direct to consumer, let's put it directly as purchase from owned publisher store.
And we're talking about web stores here, just in case, because I know that just so everyone knows, because direct to consumer, of course, is the actual vector, right? But web stores is like is what people, let's say, are using the phrase it.
Absolutely. So a web store, if is in the model of a company or a publisher web store, it means that the publisher has control on what they can put up front to player. And this means in terms of products, purchases that can be available, even a portfolio of titles that you might own, content that is related to it, like licensing products. You want to buy a plushie, you want to buy a t-shirt, etc. You have control as well to be able to provide direct contact with your own clients. It means that instead of going through a third party, you can actually engage with that player and say, look, we have something amazing for you to try. If you're a really good customer, who knows, you can even join in our program to be the first one to try a new title. You will be able to access digital content. Basically, you will be able to control an ecosystem in which a fan is able to engage with a lot of the options that you place to them and make available to them. Most of the times, And a lot of the companies nowadays are offering a steep discount on every purchase that you make through those platforms. Now, that is the good control. Studios are able to manage and distribute and offer based on the performance of the products. They're able to engage players a little bit more, like breaking the fourth wall in engagement with those players, to be honest. Now, we have the issue or the topic. It's still a little bit murky how it's going to actually be implemented. That is, how are the current platforms going to react to those changes? Because nobody likes their share of revenue to be removed or impacted with a political decision. So payment platforms are a new consideration as well. Refund process is extremely complex depending on the type or the positioning around the globe that it exists. Compliance, it's you need experts to manage most of these demands. It's complex, but we need to take into account this is not just for one single product. This is for a portfolio, so it's at scale, and those solutions will be added in as the future of gaming very, very close by.
And something you said there, no, I think, let's say, is one of the key, right? Is will be, right? Because it's very much evolving at the moment, right? Like, and I guess, something that I always like to say is that, like, is it a hammer looking for a nail? It's like, no, there is the nail, right? It's just what's the right way of doing it, right? And this is one of the most recent things we have even brought, let's say, to the GameRefinery platform, is we see it coming, right? Before it was kind of, there was web stores, there was some, direct to customer, let's say, things and stuff like that. And then there was that, like level, how should we do payments and stuff like that? And now there are companies who are really embracing it, right? And that's what we have in an element, let's say, of the platform, of our platform now, which is, okay, this is how certain companies are doing it. This is what they're experimenting with. This is what seems to be resonating with players. These are the different ways of payments. Like no surprise, like no one has actually unlocked, what's the best way for people to put their credit card numbers into let's say a web store and stuff like that. Exactly, right? So, it's it's constantly evolving. Is it going to go away? I don't think anytime soon. I think you're definitely right. There are interesting challenges, let's say, where you have stores who feature, the product, right? And then, and you want to get around this and stuff like that, right? So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And then just as the other one that you said as well, then there's legislation, right? That no, this is not going to be the Wild West, right?
Just to mention very, very shortly, the situation that is happening with Japan, anime, manga, and other content precisely on the payment processor topic is a learning opportunity for us in the West to actually understand the impact of such relationships and how things can have a positive or negative upturn. Stay tuned for that one because that's going to be very interesting as well. But the topic of the direct consumer, the app stores, is just another layer to offer players access to things that might be limited in their current location at a different pricing, something a little bit more accessible. Games companies don't want to drive away players. They want them to enjoy the products they're being offered. But you do need to know your audience. This is almost like a mantra as a market analyst to me. Do not ditch the information that you can obtain from your audiences. You need to know what composes your audiences. You need to know who they are, how they consume, what are their preferences, who they engage with and how, why are they trying a new product. All of this is pure gold for you to have a go-to-market strategy that it will actually make an impact.
For sure. And then, sorry, Carlos, I was just going to say, right, is that, yes, like that's one of the reasons why we have our audience insights, let's say, as well, right? What, the motivators and stuff, right? But I think, and it's interesting to get that snapshot and so on, right? But I guess this is something, let's say, where you have, let's say, a bit of experience on this. Yes, there's a snapshot, but guess what? It's constantly evolving, right? Audiences change what they like, let's say, all the time. New trends come up, which of course, let's say, compounds, let's say, a lot of, let's say, the difficulty or the challenge to understand them. Isn't that correct?
It is. One thing that I offer you, just food for thought, is that only now is the mobile games industry catching up with other industries in terms of how they engage with their own clients. It's no longer just putting things that are within a platform, a digital format. It means that it needs to happen a conversation between the customer and the company itself. So you need to consider that, let's talk about the CRM. People think a CRM platform is just a marketing tool. Is that you enable you to be able to target players with specific types of offers. It's a lot more than that. It's your central intelligence for you to be able to engage with groups of people that you know that are going to resonate with your product. A lot of people don't understand this, but how many times were you contacted by a company in which you're a client and they said, I'm just calling to know, how are you? We would like for you to try and see this new product. Have you seen what we now have to offer? Would you like to try it? Would you like to engage with the product? Would you like to continue to talk to us and provide feedback? In the business, you're used to this, but as a client, a normal mass market client, most people don't understand that understanding that the company cares, it's a lot for them to be able to do business as well, if not the stepping stone for you to grow a larger relationship with those clients. So that connection builds trust in the product, builds trust with what you have to offer, the new things that you're going to add in. You can even pre-recruit them to try your game in a special format and forum for they are going to be the ones going to social media and say, oh my God, I tried this, this is awesome. We see this with games in PC and console, for instance. And if you make them feel part of the process, they will stay longer, they will be engaged, and they will become fans for a long, long time. This is just to cater for what the players want and need, but to me, it's the basic foundation of a personalized service engagement. You need to have that communication.
Yeah, for sure. And what I thought was very, very interesting. What you just said there was the connection between the audience, let's say, like and the experience. Because I remember there's something I read, let's say, from one of these futurists, let's say 30 years ago, is that maybe at the 21st century generation will be more in tune with their consumer status than, let's say, national identity and stuff like that. It's like, yes, yeah, it already happened. It's previous, right? Which is interesting. And then I guess which takes us then to another point as well, right? Is audiences and experiences, right? That before people would say, well, what's a gamer? Like, what's a game? Right. And people say, what's a gamer? It's like, well, it's an 80, it's a younger, let's say, male or boy, who plays, let's say, like, FIFA or Call of Duty or something like that. But that's not the case, is it?
Nowadays, everybody is a gamer at one end or the other. The biggest audiences for mobile, particularly in casual, we know that it's female, above 35-year-olds. We understand as well that more core games have a larger male population, that it's between 25 to 45 years old. Actually, the recent legislation that is coming out of the UK and Australia and potentially other countries soon is now trying to make a divide between what is a young gamer and what is an adult gamer, and what can be catered for each of those audiences. So it comes down to exactly what we're saying here is once you create a product, you need to market that product towards the audience that you want to reach. More than 70% is word of mouth and evolution of the product on the store. People want to try it because it's something new. So if you isolate your core audience, let them be the first ones to have a taste, to experience the product that you want to achieve and deliver. We need to start catering more to those audiences, to be honest. And then people don't realize that, particularly in mobile, it's not just launch a game and that's it. Our job is done.
What I always find is that when you launch, that's when the work starts, right? And then that's when the real work starts. And then there's so much stuff to it, right? And I think something you touched on there, which is very interesting, is like engaging with the audience. How do you get them and stuff like that, right? And which is something really big here at Liftoff, right? Is user acquisition, right? Ways of doing it, understanding. And for us now, of course, now I think we're going to open it up, let's say, to other, let's say, bigger, let's say, topics, let's say, as well, right? Where like one of the big things, let's say, at GameRefinery and Liftoff Intelligence is understanding the motivators of players, right? Or like some directionality. What's happening at the moment? We know, it's constantly, let's say, a moving target. There's always new games, new features, new uh, new live events, new mini games, which we'll get onto, let's say, in a while. Always trying to get, let's say, keep your core players, try and get the ones from the competition, try and get other ones, let's say, that would be, let's say, near the genre, let's say, as well. And then again, in our company, what it is we try and do is that we try and take those motivators and put them, let's say, into the campaigns and into the creatives and stuff like that. But then we have another thing which is kind of which is coming up, which is AI creatives, which I know is kind of the dirty word, let's say, at the moment. Even though I think everyone is kind of just becoming accepting. Yes, it's a tool and stuff like that, right? But then we have AI in UA, which I guess is going to be a bit more accepted. And then we have AI in game development.
Yes. So AI in UA to me is you make faster iterations. You're able to put more creatives, test them in an even faster environment, see what actually resonates, and double down on it, like you normally do with any UA campaigns nowadays. You will just have more creatives to work with. That's the way I see it. What I'm expecting is that will have an impact on the actual cost of UA. How that's going to manifest, that's still blurry, but we need to take into account that if you do not have a human creative developing or putting those pieces together, it should have an impact, a positive impact for the companies that are consuming that service. In this case, the UA itself or the creatives. So that is something that it's still a bit murky. On the other hand, if you're thinking on applying artificial intelligence into live ops, let's take the example from Microsoft and their new demand of 80+% of their work needs to be driven by AI. That effort in itself is teaching their AI how to work more efficiently, and that's their vision, how they see. If you have a lot of very good teams working and maximizing that potential, the tool is going to be outstanding. That's the reasoning. But let's be honest, nowadays, in mobile particularly, and I do think that PC and console as well, most of the work that is being done is driven by a creative, unique truth. And a lot of humans are doing that polish on the go. So AI comes in just to remove the grunt work, let's say, the search topics, what is heavy to be developed, but we need to still take into account that a human needs to review everything that has been done, precisely because AI is not perfect, making sure that it falls into the categories of what's required for their own audiences and products, and then you will see a success.
For sure. And that's actually what we saw was actually, and just going on to that. So when we went multi-platform with our live events, so we brought in, HD games, and so on. And obviously the content treadmill was a lot slower, let's say, than mobile, right? Because assets, it can be very expensive. If you've got, let's say, like, a AAA game and stuff like that, well, you're not going to have a little thing. You're going to have a pretty big release, right? And all of these have been planned, let's say, like, well in advance. So it can be kind of difficult, to iterate. I know we've seen, we don't want to mention any names, but like some really big games, which everyone thought were too big to fail, and then made a couple of bad choices. And then, and it's hard to, right the ship. Obviously, AI would be, let's say, really great, let's say, there in terms of being a force multiplier, just as you said, talented team. Look, we don't need to bring 6 other studios in to try and, get this, let's say, like a change in the whole game experience. Maybe we just need 2. And let's say in using, let's say, tools, to help us, let's say, speed it along.
It will alleviate a lot of that communication as well. And since it's a ready-made or partially ready-made, it will just be a matter of having a maestro selecting what needs to go in and make sure that that vision is replicated. It happens the same nowadays, but it's going to be speed here is the topic at hand. It's the faster the speed, the better you can iterate and go to launch or improve the game after.
A lot of times, and we've all seen it, let's say, a V1 launches, right? And it turns out that, the market has moved, let's say, a little bit. We have to, let's say, we have to catch up. And then that iteration, like how fast can we do it? Yes, we still have our vision. We're still going to do something, unique, and so on. But how can we make sure, let's say, that we're we're giving the expectation of that the audience, let's say, has. Maybe that another diplomatic way of saying it, right?
Yes. Again, we go back to the same thing. Know your audience, know who's consuming your product, and you'll be able to reach them and engage them a lot more. You just need to make sure that you can offer what makes them click, download, and play those games.
The perfect time now for me to plug in terms of, I joke, Carlos, but it is important, like especially let's say where we first started, let's say just on game features, like what was the building blocks, what was actually happening, right? And it turned out, let's say years ago, that was fine, right? And then the market picked up pace, and as you said, started to become a lot more dynamic, let's say, and so on. And then it's like, okay, well, what motivates people? So that's when we brought in, audiences. Who are the players? Like as we were saying, like, is the core more male? Does the data say that? Is casual more female? Does the data say that? Yes. And then it's like going into what motivates them to play. Now, like an interesting one. Or two interesting ones I always bring up, let's say, anyone who's ever seen me, let's say, at the games forums and the PGCs and so on, know that I always say these things, is that what's the number one fashion game on the market at the moment, right? It's maybe true, let's say, a year and a half ago, which is Call of Duty Mobile.
Actually, I would say Dark Souls.
But going back to a nice call back to the Souls like, but because mid-core players love, the Dali dress up. They love the uniforms, the emotes, the stuff like that, that customization and decoration, right? And then one that we saw, let's say, like, where is the biggest competitive element, let's say, in gaming? And it's casual, right? But it's not the PvP, but it's the leaderboards, it's the guilds, things and so on. So it's kind of, let's call it positive, collaborative competition and so on, right? But we'd only see that by looking at the data and seeing, let's say, how things, let's say, evolve. So again, interesting, let's say, things, when you start seeing, let's say, what the motivators, let's say, of players actually are.
It's a basic human emotion for you to want to show your achievements. That's exactly what it's all about. Showing off what you've achieved in all of those hours that you dedicated to a game. So definitely yes, Brendan. And it's something that most people would learn a little bit more and understand why the multiplayer environment exists as it is nowadays, and the requirement or the need that the audiences have to have cross-platform play or gameplay so that they can even reach other competitors, other people to share what they've achieved. I'll give you an example a little bit similar to gaming. We're talking about the Steam store. Steam provides the ability for you to customize your own profile and to show off what you've been doing on all of the games, your achievements, how you've been doing, how many hours you spent, all of this. This is the new social currency. That's what people are missing in most of the games. And you see across platform that's, besides the normal issues that you have in creating a product for PC and console and mobile and the controllers and how you're going to reach those audiences, etc., you need to take into account and how are you going to enable them to show off what they've been doing. And this is not just your achievements, it's mods, the mods in PC and console. You have the content in influencer back in the digital content showing off, look, this is my character, or I'm doing this, the game is awesome, and it enables me, I don't know, to pet a dog in the middle of the wheat field. All of this are things that people want to enjoy and want to have a connection and want to share. That's why most of the games nowadays, in PC and console, they enable to take snapshots of those wow moments when you see a landscape or something. They want to show that I was there, I made a dent.
Well, not just that, Carlos. They invested money in hardware where there's a share button, right? That it's so like even for me when it first started, I remember in Halo 2 where they had brought out the screenshot function and stuff like that, and then in this gen there is the share screenshot button. Let's say on this. So yes, you're absolutely correct, right? So when companies are putting money into the actual hardware to support this, right, it's huge.
Let me put it like this: in an AI-driven world that is nowadays, people are looking for a genuine emotion share that you're able to provide to your friends. That experience, people want to make that as immense as possible. So hopefully we will see the lines blurring between the products, between the consoles, and that takes us as well in the taxonomies topic that I love. I have a love-hate relationship with that. How to categorize a game on mobile and how to categorize a game in PC and console. Where do those audiences touch themselves? How is the product going to be sold and catered for those audiences? And how can you develop an even further stronger portfolio in IP by tackling all of these simultaneously?
Yes, for sure. But I guess that's definitely the direction and the goal and so on. But then in the here and the nows, right, is that engagement is the thing, right? Live ops, they're the lifeblood of modern games, right? But one could also say for developers, they could be a little bit exhausting, let's say, as well.
Mostly all of the topics in the game development are now being regulated. Digital Fairness Act, monetization strategies, how you're going to sell the products to your audiences, young, mature, and elderly alike. The banning of dark patterns that might or not exist in games, because most of the times people identify them, but they're a byproduct of what's happening in the industry. Enforcing price transparency across the board as well, and regulating the influencer marketing. And when I say this is companies need to start understanding that throwing money at a solution might sometimes not be enough. They need to know how it works and how they will connect the dots across the board. That is extremely complex because you're no longer only focused on your craft, in which you're performing to a publisher or developer, but you need to know where they overlap and how you can maximize the effect of that action by creating a wave that pushes in the right direction. Let me just jump in and tell you this. I am a big fan of influencer marketing. I know the effect it can have. It can bring very good results for any product. But unfortunately, for a company to consider how effective it is, we need to know exactly how many players is it driving. Nowadays, that solution does not exist. If we see someone that saw an influencer doing something and, oh, I'm going to download the game, we don't exactly know where that player came from. So there is still solutions that can be developed and implemented in order to close the gap to what the developers actually require. And this is not just in gaming. We're talking about any app development. We're talking about movies. We're talking about even products across any retailer shops, etc. I'm not talking about a dystopian digital world that everything is connected and we suddenly are in a cyberpunk environment, but we do need to understand where people are coming from, what do they want, how can we cater for that? Because once that's clear, the teams will have a focus, a direction, and they will be able to ship content a lot faster.
Yeah, for sure. And you're so right, Carlos. Like, I think knowing your audience, let's say, is the number one. But as you said, uh, and we hear it so many times, companies pouring money into something. Well, let's just fix it with this, right? And and you've said it so many times. And I was thought, let's say, it was so smart. It's like, don't shout louder, listen more. Like, look at the data, understand the audience, right? It's like understand it. Look, find ways of, like, for us, let's say, like, one of the reasons, let's say, will be brought, let's say, like, the motivators, or why do I like, playing these games, is that companies rely a lot, let's say, on surveys, right? Like, listen to the audience. Like, what do they like? And we've all dealt with rock star game developers, right? This is it, and listen, it's great, and for sure, and like the product is born and it's out there, right? But then it's not their property anymore. It's the property of the audience, right? It's like, how are we enjoying it, right? And you need to listen to that, right? So that's why we brought that macro view, let's say, of audience, let's say, insights. But then for you, listening and understanding the audience, like, we know you have, it's high on the totem pole. For people, let's say, listening, let's say, and watching this, where would you advise them, to, let's say, start looking, what to start doing, where to start listening more?
So first, GameRefinery provides a very good platform to start. We need to take into account as well that a person is not a monolith, and their appetites and their profiles changes depending on the context. So I would advise starting understanding the demographics and the region in which they're located, the audiences that you intend to reach. And once you know this, you'll be able to cater for the content for a particular culture or a particular region. There is in business a rule that culture can kill a business if you don't know how to navigate through it. So you need to understand, can we increase the quality of our product if we provide something from that audience that we want to provide? A good example are movies. They're constantly tapping into the regional differences that exist. Games should do a little bit more of this. It's something that got lost in the last 20 years in game development. Once you know your demographics and your constituents within your clients, then start looking. So what types of challenges can I offer to them to keep them engaged? Are they a collector? Are they actually just a power user? They want to be the strongest there is. Are they a challenger? They want to challenge other players in the game. And then you start to define or fine polish exactly what are the design equivalents or engagement, your gameplay, your features, what to sell to them, and its most basic from that point on. A couple of years ago, I'll put it 10 years as a frame of reference. Everybody said that females do not play games. They're not gamers. It's completely outside. Nowadays, they're the driving force in mobile casual. And things changed.
Oh, by the way, Carlos, which some people don't understand, which is the biggest part of gaming worldwide, right? Right? It more like so many more times bigger, let's say, than even console and PC, right? So yeah, so it was like, definitely not understanding the market potential.
But then you have the topic and the issue that if audiences are somewhat limited, okay, you can only convince one person to try a game so many times before they tune out. So the economy of scale needs to have a cap at some point, and you need to start to polish exactly how you can provide more for them in order for them to engage with the product. And again, I'll go back to, that's why we constantly have live ops teams looking into how are they playing. Does the data tell us exactly the same thing that we're seeing in the game? Doing focused questionnaires to very special clients. I would even go upfront and say your best clients, reach out to them and ask, do you like the new changes? How are your feedback? Did you engage? Did you like the new feature that you've placed? Start assembling the puzzle. And then you start to realize, wait a minute, we're actually creating a product for people that like to drive cars, but not on the city. We're talking about people like to drive cars on the highway. So let's put a little bit more of a highway environment so they can enjoy it even further. That's what I'm talking about. If you know their appetite, ask them directly, see what they're saying in social media, go after that feedback. That's all there is to it.
Yes, sorry, Carlos. No. I will let you say anything about GameRefinery.
GameRefinery is a very good initial stepping stone because it already provides you the guiding light and what you need to follow further. And you do know, as a market analyst, I never take for granted what it's being put in front of me. I need to double check exactly if they match with my other venues. Lots of data, looking through the trends and seeing if it translates or not in sales, downloads, etc. So once you have that, trust is built, and then you're going to try and double check with your clients, seeing if it fits. And I can tell you for sure, the resonance with the products is almost immediate. Is as soon as something that connects with the players is made live, you will start to see the numbers grow.
One thing I wanted just to remind you of as well, right? Another element, which I guess it's because you live it so much and it's so obvious to you, and I think lots of people, let's say, could learn from you about it, is understanding IPs and how they resonate, let's say, with audiences and regionals. Exactly, Carlos. It's so big, right? And I guess it's something you've been living, let's say, for so long. And it's that real kind of cultural, regional differentiator, let's say, as well, right? Having insights into that, let's say, which again, I consider you, let's say, one of, let's say, the main experts.
There are, just to put it out there on that topic, a very simple one, price localization, something that people do not take into account or do not consider. But if your product is too expensive in certain regions, it means that it will not sell. So consider reducing that price. increase the number of downloads of your product. And then you start testing exactly how far you can actually monetize the game or provide them with interconnected ways for them to enjoy the game. The follow-up content, it can be digital content, TV series, it can be movies. Again, look at Bethesda, what they did with the TV series, and it just skyrocketed most of the sales. That's the type of correlation that I'm talking about. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they opened up their own segment and portfolio by just adding another layer of entertainment.
We knew that there was something there, right? When Fallout came out, right? Like we knew from the original, okay, it's from a Nolan. We know it's probably going to be good. You know, Amazon, let's say, are behind it. The first trailer, let's say, looked really good. We could see there was a couple of different, let's say, Easter eggs inside there as well, right? So that people are like, yes, it's going to be Fallout. But no one, I think, had seen, hang on, why is Fallout 4, let's say, so high, let's say, on the charts, let's say, and so on. Of course, there's like an anniversary edition coming out, let's say, next year as well. Of course, we got, New Vegas, let's say, coming, let's say, as well. What Riot did with Arcane.
CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk as well. That was a genius move. So what I'm trying to tell you is they knew, and Cyberpunk is a good example because it's let's say, pop culture that not everybody tracks unless they're from the 80s and 90s. They actually picked up something that was supposed to be dormant and blew it out of proportion completely. And they outsold most of their competitors.
Which is so funny when you mentioned, let's say that, and you mentioned Cyberpunk, and a couple of maybe the younger people, let's say, who, let's say, work for us, I thought, oh, wow, you like, Night City and stuff. You should read Neuromancer by William Gibson, right? And when they were like, it's like, yeah, like we've seen all of this stuff, It's like, but 40 years ago, this blew the doors off everything, right?
You know the audience, you know the region, you know the trigger that you can aim at, and they generated a product that is amazing. See, going back to our initial point, hybridization here is not only through game to game, but it's actually from pop feature culture to actually the game development. And that's why that is a trigger of creativity, and that is why people, if they add the context in, success to me is guaranteed. You sometimes always see the math unraveling in front of you because you went through point A, point B, point C, point D, and then suddenly, boom, you get a hit. I know a lot of people try it, a lot of failures happen. I understand this, but keep focused on the product and make sure that the product is for your audience.
Yeah, and what we've learned, let's say, at GameRefinery is, number one, audiences want experiences, right? Forget about the lane, right? Best of breed is best of breed. It doesn't matter what, right? It's like, that was in like a 4X game, it won't work. It's like, no, if it works, and as we said, going back to the earlier one, like with direct to customer web stores, like, yes, there's things working, but who's really going to unlock it? Who's really going to find, that's what you should be, let's say, looking at as well. I'm mindful of the time here. I know that every time we speak that there's always questions that are answered. And as we know that when you answer questions, new questions come up. Right. So, and I know, Carlos, that you're, let's say, a great conversationalist about this. I'm sure and of course, what we always find, especially when we're doing, let's say, something, let's say, wide ranging, that people were always saying, yeah, but in my case, I want to talk about, let's say, this, like, what's your feeling on such and such? I guess we will put, let's say, your contact details. I'm sure people can reach out to you on LinkedIn and stuff like that, to ask, let's say, about, especially on the case of like with all of your vast experience and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I'm always open to engage with discussions and provide assistance. I do it all the time, to be completely honest. LinkedIn is the best way to reach me. It's a safe platform. People will see credentials. We'll make sure that you have the right person, so we can then book a contact if needed at a later stage. But absolutely. If you have any challenges in market insights, anything that you cannot handle, even advertising, product management, something that you're lacking, or at least that you would like to brainstorm, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, fantastic. And what I will say, Carlos, as I say, it's always wonderful to speak to you because you've worked in so many different teams in so many different areas. And then, of course, you tie all of the spaghetti, let's say, as well. So you have to be kind of, let's say, like, a master, let's say, of knowing, let's say, what what when you're herding the cats, I guess it's like knowing what product wants, what marketing wants, what sales wants, what UA wants. Let's say, and then of course, never mind all of the live events, but all of the new games and understanding, let's say, IPs and regions, let's say as well.
Brendan, I'm telling you a secret here to the open public. They're all talking the same thing. So you just need to make sure that whatever they're telling actually resonates with the lingo of a different craft and what they're actually doing. Again, if you layer and connect those dots, that's it. You just need to simplify, or let's put it, translate from, I don't know, UA to business, from business to development, from development to product management, so that they understand exactly what they need to do, how they need to do it, and what they need to put forth in order to achieve that goal. That's it.
Yep, wonderful. And as I said, I love what you said. Shout less, listen more. Carlos, I love it. Thank you so much for being, let's say, on the episode.
Thank you for the invite, and I really appreciate. And please reach out if you need any assistance. I'll be more than willing to give a hand.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. Bye, folks.
Okay, great work. Thanks to Brendan and Carlos for their insight. Don't forget, every episode we are talking to people who are taking the mobile games industry forward to new and exciting places. So don't miss out. Do subscribe, and we'll see you next time.